Hello, hello, and welcome to Nerdy Girl Travels. Today we're going to be talking about how to go about building an itinerary for your vacation. So, the first step, of course, is to decide where you want to go and what you want to do. If you are traveling for a specific purpose, so say you were going to Coachella, then you already know what you need to do, but you may want to spend some time exploring the city around you as well. Likewise, if you know where you're going, you then obviously need to kind of figure out what it is you're going to do when you get there. Unless, of course, you're going on a relaxation trip, in which case even then you might want to build an itinerary in terms of like spa activities and things of that nature. But that's not what we're talking about today, although this may still be very useful for that. So once you figured out where you're wanting to go or what you're going for, the next step, of course, is when are you going to go and for how long? So mapping out that timeline, that helps with one, budgeting purposes. So knowing how long you have to save up, how much you are going to need in terms of like hotel fees or Airbnb or whatever it is your accommodations are going to be, how many days that you're going to need to provide food for yourself, transportation, all of that stuff. So, another part to that, of course, is what time of year is it? So, if you tuned into the last podcast, you remember we talked about packing weather appropriate and activity appropriate clothing. So, if you're going to the West Coast during the rainy season, that means packing galoshes, that means packing an umbrella, things like that. So, when are you going and how does that impact your trip? Next, we'll talk about budgeting. So, you're planning a trip, you know it's maybe 6 months out, a year out, 3 months out, whatever the case. How much are you willing to spend on your trip? Because that is a determining factor in what you do and how you attack your actual activities that you're planning to do while you're there. So definitely want to make sure that you come up with a budget that makes sense for what you're wanting to do, how much time you have to save it, and what your wallet says you can do. Next on the list is to make a list. So, what are the things that are your must see activities, must do activities? What are the days and times that those things are available to you? What's really important with making sure that you understand that is so that you can plan your activities around one another. Building an itinerary is essentially a giant puzzle. And so you want to make sure that all of your pieces fit together. And this is especially important if you're going somewhere and you're only going for like the weekend, but you have 10, 15 things you want to do. If you have a little bit more time, so say you're going on vacation for a week or 2 weeks or a month or whatever the case, or even just relocating, you obviously are going to have a lot more time to go out and see the sights and do the things that you're wanting to do in that particular city. So, you have a lot more flexibility in that aspect. But if you are on a tight turnaround time, you want to make sure that you know how these different pieces fit together. Another aspect of that is your transportation plan in addition to the things that you're wanting to see. So, how are you getting to these activities or these locations? If you're driving yourself, you're doing a road trip, or if you are renting a car when you get to your location, then again, you have a little bit more flexibility because you have your own transportation. But with that comes parking. What does that look like? Distance, traffic, those types of things. So you have to make sure that again, circling back to days and times. And I know not everyone is a planner, but these are definitely some things that you have to consider, even if you're not going to have a hard and fast rule or plan for yourself, at least a general idea. Well, my hotel is 20 miles away from all the activities that I want to do. That means I'm going to be in traffic. That means I might need to leave the hotel at such and such time. So, those are things that you definitely want to consider. Likewise, with the transportation, if you're taking public transportation, is your hotel near a bus stop or a train stop? How much is it for Uber? How long does it take to get from wherever you're staying to wherever you're going? How long does it take to get between locations? So if, again, you're on a tight schedule and you have to do multiple things in the same day, you want to make sure that you map that out so that you're not spending a lot of unnecessary time either in traffic or in Ubers or buses or trains or whatever the case may be. So you want to plan it out so that, your point A leads to your point B, leads to your point C, and hopefully circles back to your hotel. Which again brings us to the next piece. It's choosing a hotel. Now, I will have a future podcast coming up about the different types of hotel accommodations and how you navigate that process. But for today, we're focused mainly on location and cost. So, again, back to your budget. How much do you have to spend on your accommodation, on your trip in general, and how much are you leaving for your accommodation? Knowing that you're going to have to pay for food, the potential of having to pay for transportation if you're not in a hotel that is centrally located, how you're getting to your location in general. So if you're flying, if you're driving, what that looks like. But also, like I said, location of your hotel. If you are planning 10 activities and all of them, for example, are in central London, then it doesn't really make sense to be in a hotel that's in Manchester or Croydon. So you want to make sure that you're taking that into consideration as well. But again, with your budget, does it make financial sense for you to be closer to the things you want to do so that you cut out the Uber and maybe spend a little bit more? Or does it make more sense to stay maybe a little further out and that Uber price kind of makes up the difference? So you have to make sure that you're thinking about those types of things when you're choosing a hotel as well. Not to mention, of course, like I said, in the future video, we'll talk about the different types of hotels and qualities and star ratings and all of that. Before I go, I will leave you with one bonus tip, and that will be available to those of you who follow me on Patreon. So I definitely appreciate the support. So on my Patreon page, I will have posted a sample itinerary. It is very, very detailed. You do not have to have an itinerary this detailed yourself if you're just not that kind of person. But it definitely will provide you with a better idea of what that can potentially look like so you understand the things that you may need to factor in when you're building your own itinerary. So I'm not going to give you my full week because that's just excessive, but it will be a couple of days that I spent in the UK. And so there were multiple different things that I factored into my trip, including food and stopping and seeing things along the way, as well as being able to get back to my hotel and the different timetables and things like that. So that'll definitely be available along with this video on my Patreon account. This will be in early access if you are following me on Patreon. Otherwise, you will see this on YouTube when you see it. So thank you again, everyone, for tuning in today. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. If you'd like to continue to support me, check out my Patreon where you will get early access and exclusive content as I mentioned. Thanks for your continued support, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Hello, and welcome.